If your videos look like this, I'm going to show you how you can make them look like this before getting them to look like this. Both these setups either cost nothing or can be done on a very reasonable budget. So a company called Sandmarc were kind enough to send me over a couple of their brand new Prolight Mini lights, the bicolor and the RGB version. And I wanted to think about a way I could test these out that would actually also give you some value. So I'm going to show you how you can incorporate mini LED lights such as these into your lighting setup to get results like this and take your lighting setup to the next level. But first we're going to start out by talking about how you can improve your lighting in your videos. So getting right into it, this is what your talking head shot would look like if you're just using practical lights. And practical lights are basically those lights that you use to light any room in your house. These could be your ceiling light, maybe a lamp in your room, or any other lights that you use to just kind of light a room. So there are two things that really make this shot look terrible: the hardness or quality of the light and also the placement of the light. So firstly, on the quality of light, because the light source is actually really small and it's also quite far away from me, this produces really hard and sharp shadows on my face, as you can see here. And because the placement of light is above me, it's producing these weird like shadows underneath my eyes, underneath my nose, and underneath my chin, which does not look good. But we can sort these issues by switching to the next light setup. So let's do that just now. Because this light source is much larger than the one we were using in the last setup, and it's also not directly above me, then my face is much more evenly lit and the shadows are a lot softer. As you can see, if I put my hand in front, you can see those shadows are nice and soft on my face that are coming through my hand. So you can see the set behind me is actually kind of boring, there's not that much going on, but we can make it more interesting with light, and this will also help separate me from the background. So I'm going to turn on the backlight on my TV, I'm going to turn on a salt lamp which is just behind me, and also these fairy lights which you can just see kind of coming down the side here. So let's do that and see what it looks like. Right, so now we've got a bit more interest in the background, we've got a bit more contrast around me as well, so it looks a bit better, and I think this setup could be usable for anyone. And the key thing about this setup is I haven't used anything that wasn't already in the house. So you might actually not have like a backlight on your TV, for example, but you can mimic this by just putting a lamp behind your TV, and then it still bounces that light off the back of the TV onto the wall, makes it nice and soft. These are techniques that you can use to actually just create interest in the background and create that soft light in the background as well. But there is one major issue with this setup, and that is that we are using natural light. And as we know, natural light isn't around 24 hours of the day, and it's also not the same level all throughout the day, because you have clouds coming in, you have the sun coming out and going back in, you have when it's raining, you'll have a different light from when it's not raining. All these different things can make a difference to the quality of the light that you have coming in through your window. I guarantee this setup wouldn't look as good if we had the sun streaming through the window right now, because it would cause harsh shadows on my face. Fortunately, today it's quite a cloudy day, so that actually creates a nice soft light, and these are the kind of days that you want to do this filming on, really, because that softens the light up and it creates those nice shadows on your face. If you plan on filming in the winter on an evening, for example, then you just wouldn't be able to use this setup because you wouldn't have that major key light that you've got here. The main light for your setup is this window, and if there's nothing coming through that, it's going to look crap. So that is the downside of this setup. But where you can get around this is using continuous LED lights, and this is what we're going to do with the next setup. So let's go on to that. So now we're using a continuous LED light source, and this is the Godox SL-60W light, and you can get this for around £130 on Amazon. This is going through a modifier, which is this huge light box that's right in front of me. So coming back to the quality of light that we talked about in the first setup, the quality really depends on the size of your light source and how far it is away from the subject. In this case, it's me, and the light is right here. The closer and larger the light source, the softer the light is going to be. The great thing about softbox like this is it allows you to get a really big light source really close to your subject, and that creates this extremely soft roll off of shadows on your subject. As you can see here, if this was a hard light source, there'd be my chin, it would be a shadow right here, but it's kind of rolling off nicely onto my shoulder, which is what you really want to see. But right now, this setup's a little bit dramatic for my liking. We've got this, nice light here, but it's actually really dark down the back of me here, which kind of just fades into the background a little bit. So that's not necessarily what you want. This is where the Sandmarc Prolight Minis can really come in and help us to shape light around the subject and actually create a bit more of a separation between your subject and the background. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get my Sandmarc Prolight Mini RGB light. I'm going to set it up to this side of me next to the fairy lights, so I can use that to motivate those fairy lights to make it look like they're actually lighting the back of me. We can use that to actually create that background separation. Okay, so that's the Prolight Mini RGB set up just out of shot now. I've got it set to a kind of similar color as the fairy lights, so it should look like they're actually lighting me a bit more now. And you can see there's just a little bit more interest here. So that just gives a bit more separation to me and the background, and just kind of brings me out of the background a bit more so that your eyes are actually drawn to my face, which is what we want in this shot because I'm the subject of the shot. And now finally, I've put the Prolight Mini bicolor behind me, shooting up on the wall behind me so that it gives a bit of a glow behind me. And that kind of works. It gives a little bit more separation again, kind of outlines you a bit in the background, which is quite nice. These are a couple of ways you could use these lights or similar lights to kind of improve that setup a little bit. I like this setup now, so we've got these kind of lights on the side, we've got the light behind the TV, we've got the lamp behind where you can't really see it, but it does actually add a little bit of light. All of this together brings up this really nice setup and makes the subject look good, which is the main thing and what you're trying to achieve here. So now we're going to go back to my usual setup. If you've not watched the channel before, then you won't know, but this isn't my usual setup. I usually film it in another room, which is a lot smaller. We're going to go back there. We're going to talk about the Prolight Mini RGB and bicolor a little bit more and the features and things like that in case you guys are interested in buying them. Okay, so let's talk about the Sandmarc Prolight Minis and whether I think you should buy them or not. Throughout this section, I'm going to compare these lights quite closely to the Aputure MC, as I'm pretty sure Sandmarc have taken a load of design cues from Aputure in this case, as these lights have a lot of similar features. So these Sandmarc lights come in at around £90 or $90 for the RGB version and £70 or $70 for the bicolor version. And for comparison, you can pick up an Aputure MC for around £100 or $90. In the box, along with the Prolight Mini itself, you get a diffuser, a hot shoe mount, a charging cable, and a very basic carry case. So first of all, let's talk about what I like about these lights. And my favorite thing has got to be that they are very lightweight, small, and very well built. Both the RGB and the bicolor versions both have exactly the same physical footprint, but they have some minor differences, such as the labels on the buttons and the array of lights on the front. But both lights share a nice solid build quality, with the back being made of metal. The bicolor light gets really nice and bright, with its maximum output being 800 lux at 0.5 meters, where in comparison, the RGB light has a maximum output of 600 lux at 0.5 meters, and in practice this is really quite a lot dimmer than the bicolor light. However, this trade-off allows you to pick from the whole spectrum of colour, which is definitely a positive. For talking headshots, I've found myself leaning towards the bicolor light simply because it provides a bit of extra brightness when using it as a hair light or a rim light, but the RGB light is extremely useful if you want to use it as an accent light on products during B-roll or product photography, for example. The small OLED screen on the back of the light is just about the right size for you to see your settings and is really nice and bright as well. And I really like the included small diffuser, as this helps to provide a really nice soft light. I could see this being really useful as a hair or rim light for use in portrait photography. And finally, I love the inclusion of USB-C here for charging, as it makes it compatible with most of the cables that I already have. This is something I don't have on my older Aputure AL-M9, which still uses micro USB, but this is again an older light. But one thing to just bear in mind is that in my experience, these lights charge very slowly. So now let's move on to the negatives, and many of these come down to what is included with the Aputure MC and not included with the Sandmarc lights. Firstly, with the Sandmarc lights, you have to buy both of these lights if you want both RGB functionality as well as a color accurate bicolor light, whereas with the Aputure MC you get all of this functionality in the one light. However, to be fair to Sandmarc, as mentioned before, the bicolor light does get nice and bright at 800 lux at 0.5 meters, whereas the Aputure MC can only achieve a maximum brightness of 400 lux at 0.5 meters. Another thing is battery life, and I'm not saying that the battery life is bad, but I think this is more of a missed opportunity on Sandmarc's part. The Aputure MC is actually slightly thicker than the Prolight Minis at 50mm over the Prolight Mini's 12.5mm, and because of this it sports a 2-hour battery life over the Sandmarc's 90-minute battery life. I would have preferred if Sandmarc had actually just made their lights a little bit thicker and we would have got that extra battery life, but that's the decision they went for. And speaking of batteries, on the Prolight Minis there's actually no battery percentage indicator. Instead, the battery life is actually indicated in a series of quarter increments. So for example, if the battery is on 3 bars, it could be anywhere between 51% and 75%, which for the battery anxious among us is not extremely helpful. And quickly, here are a few features that the Aputure MC has that the Prolight Minis don't have. The MC has wireless charging, and it's also compatible with an app that allows you to more easily dial in the color that you want to be displayed. You can also use your phone's camera as a color picker, and you can also use your phone as basically a wireless remote for the light, so you can control it from a distance. The MC also has magnets built into the back, which allow you to mount the light to any metal surface, which could come in clutch if you don't have any other way of mounting a light somewhere and you really need that backlight, that hair light, that rim light maybe. While I'm not that bothered about wireless charging, those other two features could come in really useful in certain situations. And the reason I'm comparing the Prolight Minis so closely to the MC is because that pricing is so close. And for a similar price, you can get all the features from both the Sandmarc lights in the one Aputure MC light. So the Prolight Minis have a lot going for them, and they're certainly good products, but it's really hard to recommend them while the Aputure MC exists. But I must say, I do like the fact that Sandmarc gives you the option to buy the cheaper bicolor light if you're not looking for any RGB features. Having a look at Aputure's range of mini LED lights, there's nothing that really compares to the Prolight Mini bicolor in terms of features as well as the price. The closest options here are the Aputure MX or the AL-M9. The MX is double the price at $150, while the AL-M9 just doesn't have the same level of control over your light temperature or brightness. So fundamentally, I wouldn't recommend that you buy the Prolight Mini RGB over the Aputure MC, but the Prolight Mini bicolor could be a really compelling option if you're looking for a really solid and bright mini LED bicolor light. I'd be super interested to hear your thoughts on these lights and whether you use mini LED lights in your filming and photography. So drop me a comment down below and let's have a chat. If you found this video helpful or informative, or you learned a bit more about lighting your videos, then please drop a like down below. It helps tell YouTube's algorithm that this video is hopefully worth a watch. And finally, I want to thank Sandmarc for sending out these lights to me to test. I've had a really good time actually testing and using them. But apart from lighting, another really important aspect of video is audio. So I'd recommend that you check out this video here to make sure that you've got your microphone set up in a way that gets you the best audio quality. Otherwise, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Cheers.